Hello again, Struck. Today I'm bringing you another build video for the Ascent, and this one, unlike the heals and beams or the beam and heals build that I made a few days ago, will be focused on some other roles to fill. I've included things that give him shield, I've included things that give him close range AoE crowd control and damage, and I've added weapons that are close to long range. So I'm using things like the flamethrower, I'm using the shield, not the bubble but the one that's just around us, the personal shield, and as a secondary skill or ability I decided to use the stasis AoE shockwave that pulls enemies mid-air. But you can use something else there, more about that in the following segments. So the first place that might be best to start with is the passive skills. Keep in mind you might want to do it differently than I did. And also keep in mind that cybernetics, motorics, biometrics and frame are stats that get increased as you put attribute skill points into those. So if you have 20 points here and 20 points here, that would give you 40 cybernetics. The same goes for this and motorics, this and frame, and this and biometrics. The colors are easy indicator. Unless you're colorblind, then it just tells you which one is associated with which. So why do I put vital signs? Max HP, it's nice for any type of build. I don't like being too squishy, so always vital signs, especially if we are going to be a little bit closer to the enemies and letting them hit us or reach us. Crit hit rate is not a must-have, but I like it. You might want to try and build without it, it's up to you. I think weapon handling for the reload speed is a must-have, especially if you're gonna use the machine gun. If you don't use the machine gun and decide to go with flamethrower and shotgun, or flamethrower and something else, then you can remove points from weapon handling. Body battery, I would suggest putting some points in, even if you don't max it out, some points in there would be nice, so that you can use more skills and more like back-to-back skill casting. In certain cases it's not possible if you only have 100 energy, because some skills cost 70 something, 80 energy, etc. So why did I put points into balance? I think stuns, knockbacks and stagger resistant and the movement penalty reduction is nice, although the movement penalty reduction is not that great from what I've noticed. But keep in mind we're using stasis, which is a purple skill, which the higher the frame, the higher the duration of stasis. And we're also using shield brunettes, which gets scaled from cybernetics. So you would most likely want at least 20 points into the cybernetics, one of them, and at least 20 points in one of those, which leaves you with some points to spare, sure. As I mentioned, you might want to get rid of weapon handling and put it into evasion so you can have better stasis duration, or put it into tactical sense for tactical recharge, for healing more often, and for better duration on your shield brunetics. That's one way of doing it. Or you can put 10 points into into body battery so you can have even more energy, and then 10 points here or 10 points here. I wouldn't put points into aiming, I don't think it's that needed, even for the minigun, unless you decide to change the skills, and more about alternative skill changes later. Now let's move on to the loadout, where the primary, secondary and tactical are located. For the primary, I would strongly suggest Magma Maker, which you get from a specific spot from the casino. The casino, which is located it's in the high street, of Oncology, over here in the middle. So if you go to Arcology High Street in the middle, that is where you will find that that flamethrower, the Magma Maker. I think it's a great weapon and definitely worth experimenting with. And see, mine is only Mark 8 when I recorded it. I didn't have enough components to upgrade to Mark 9 and 10, but even at Magma, even with Magma Maker Mark 8, I was happy with the results. For the secondary, I used Strobos as a minigun, energy minigun. You might want to try the Siege Breaker, the ballistic minigun, the physical damage minigun. It says that it has better DPS, just that if they're resistant to ballistic, it's not gonna do that much. But yeah, you can experiment, or you can add something else, like for example the Eraser is an energy shotgun with an amazing DPS, worth using, worth checking this one out as an alternative choice. Other things, like there's obviously burst rifles, assault rifles, machine guns, SMGs, etc. There's all sorts of weapons, but I think that this goes very nicely to have a flamethrower for AoE and machine gun, minigun for single target and boss bursts, and you'll see why I say minigun when we move on to the augmentations. Tactical, I would say Rejuvenation Field is amazing. Keep in mind it also heals enemies. So if you use it and try to out DPS the heal, make sure you're using something that can actually out DPS the heal against that type of an enemy. Other worth mentions are Pocket Mech. If you want to be tanking more, it's nice. I mean, Shockwave is not bad, Stasis is not bad, but again, I would prefer the Rejuvenation Field or the Pocket Mech myself. And now we're gonna talk about the Augments SWAT 1, 2 and Module SWAT 1, 2. So for Augments SWAT 1, 2, I would say really good choice would be Shield Drunetics. It's amazing, it goes very nicely with a build where you're closer to the enemies. It lets you pop this at the beginning of the fight, thin out the hurt before the duration ends, and then that means the first initial damage that you would have taken, you ignore. The cooldown is 14 seconds, it costs 60 energy, so it's more of a spammy skill compared to some others. Obviously Life Transfer is a good one as well, if you wanna heal as you do damage. Obviously there's all sorts of other things that can go nicely, such as Volatile or even Joyrun Dragon, if you want to combine this stasis with that stasis and just be a stasis build. Other things that are worth mentioning in a moment. Augment SWAT 2. Here I've put Stasis Stomp, which, as I mentioned, scales from frame. It has 4 seconds cooldown but costs 85 energy. So if you want to be more spammy, max out your energy stat. I only put 10 points, you might want to put 20 points into energy. Another good thing to experiment with would be the Razor Drunettes, and have double Drunettes, Shield and Razor. Propulsion Leap is also nice to close in distance to an enemies if you want to be the tank. Another good thing would be Walk on Fire, and this is why I mentioned miniguns. Walk on Fire, if you use it when you have a full magazine of a minigun, it will empty the remainder of your clip with perfect accuracy and extra efficiency. On boss fights, this combined with a minigun melts them. So before bosses you might want to switch to this, and I wouldn't suggest using it for regular mobs because it seems like a waste, and it's a long cooldown, not much energy consumption though, but 24 seconds cooldown. Another thing that you might wanna experiment with, as I mentioned, would be like double stasis, Joyrun or Stasis Stomp together, or Life Transfer and Shield. There are so many things, but I would say test Shield Dronettes and Stasis Stomp, and maybe switch to Walk on Fire for bosses. For the modules, I would say Vita Sign Booster for extra HP, and Speed Heal is not bad. Speed Heal is not bad, but if you think you want Tactical Charge, or Javelin Dash, it's also a good idea. Here we are talking about armor. One thing very important to understand about armor is stats from armor can boost your attributes here. It can boost your crit hit rate, balance, tactical sense, evasion, aiming, etc. And by boosting those, you're boosting your cybernetics, motorics, biometrics and frame, which in turn boosts your augment skills. So be very considerate about that when picking your armor. Obviously you want as much of every type of defense, or at least the type of defense when you're fighting a certain enemy and know they use that type of damage, like physical, energy, fire, digital, etc. Obviously you would want to maximize your defenses, but you also might want to consider making some sacrifices of defense so you can get more stats, so you can increase the efficiency of your skills, of your augments. So I would say things that you want to look out for would be crit hit rate, things like balance, things like tactical recharge, things like what was its name, evasion. Even though we didn't invest into it, you can still get some evasion and balance from gear and increase your frame to make the duration of the stasis better. And obviously if you switch to this augment I mentioned, that's very good for boss fights, walk on fire, you would want the blue stats, which would mean you might want to consider weapon handling and aiming if you do this change. So make sure you are stacking the right stats without ignoring defenses, but sometimes you might want to sacrifice a little bit of defense for the sake of your skills. Keep in mind, with this setup you would probably be mid to close range when using the flamethrower, which means you might be getting some hits when the shield is not up, so it would be nice to have defenses, but extra energy would be amazing for this build. Extra energy, extra duration for your shield, which means you would want extra crit chance and extra tactical recharge and extra energy recharge, body energy, not recharge but maximum energy. So I would say my top priority would be body energy alongside anything green, be it crit chance or tactical recharge for the head, the torso and the legs. And obviously if you can get some extra resistances, that's a bonus. And here is the part where I show you a little bit more gameplay footage of the build in action. I'm gonna try and include some minigun footage, some flamethrower footage and footage where I use various kind of skills and tactical abilities. So as you can see, the build is not that difficult to play. Just at the beginning of a fight use your shield so you can soak up the first hits of damage, and while you have that shield on you, you take an advantage to be more aggressive and thin out the hurt. And by the time the shield is over, you should have less enemies left. Obviously using stasis when you feel the need is nice. And it should be probably at the beginning while there's a lot of enemies so you can take advantage of the AoE of stasis, but in general switch to flamethrower when it's needed, when it feels like you want AoE instead of single target. And there's gonna be enemies that are resistant to the flames, and that's when you have to switch, such as this mech guy here, when you have to switch to a different weapon so you can do more damage. To get notified when I upload more content for this game or other games like this one, which would be wooters of all varieties, isometric, third-person ARPGs, wooter shooters and all sorts of wooters like that, you could subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button to not miss out on my content updates. And optionally you can even join as a member of the Struck Club on YouTube as a channel member to get access to exclusive perks such as special emotes custom made by me, special badges custom made by me that represents how many months you have been a member for, as well as opt-in of editing tutorials that I can give for Photoshop, Adobe Premiere, as well as shoutouts and things like that. And I would like to use this part of the video to thank all my YouTube members and Twitch subscribers. Thank you for supporting the channel and keeping me going. Thank you also for watching this video, everyone. Keep it cool, Struck Club. Until next time, and goodbye.